Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. This is Crafting with a Cocktail. My name is Danielle and I'm so excited to have you. On this channel we do crafting and cocktails all in one segment, and I'm super excited. If you've been here, if you're subscribed, thank you so much, and if you're new, I hope that you stay and subscribe as well. Let's check out today's spring DIYs that is part of a wonderful collab that I can't wait to tell you about in a little bit. Cheers! This DIY is absolutely adorable. It is a little clutch that I made out of a Dollar Tree placemat that I thought had the just most gorgeous fun spring pattern. So I am just taking off the tags here, and then I'm going to fold it up to see how I want it to all fit together. Now, before I start gluing the edges, I am just going to mark it with a little bit of a marker so I know where to stop. And then I'm just using hot glue for this part. You could definitely sew it. I just chose not to. I wanted to save myself a little bit of time, so I just used hot glue at this point. When it's all glued down, then I'm gonna take a marker and mark where I want my button to fall on the front, and then I'm going to cut a slit there because it's going to have to fit through that little slit, and of course I want to make sure it fits well enough, so I do test it out as well. And once I make sure that it fits in that part, I'm going to take the same marker and just poke it through that little hole to make sure that I mark on the other side where my button will actually have to be fastened. Now I'm getting to the sewing part. I could not find my typical needle and thread. So I am using an embroidery needle and some foil green embroidery floss, which was kind of fun but also a bit difficult to work with. So I would recommend either a regular embroidery floss if you have one in the color that you like, or just regular needle and thread. So I just sewed my button on there, and then I'm going to sew a lining around the edge of the slit that I cut where it will fit. So that way it can slide through there and the edges won't just fray all over the place. Like I said, I struggled a bit with this particular embroidery floss, and I'm just not the greatest at sewing. It's something I'm still learning and definitely want to learn more about. So don't judge my sewing job, okay? Once that's all good to go, I'm going to create a tassel, and I am using two different colored yarns as well as some of that green kind of foil embroidery floss to make it. I'm just wrapping it around my hand several times and then creating a tassel by tying a piece around the top of the loops, one around just about half an inch below it to really secure them together, and then cutting off the bottoms. And I believe I give it a haircut later. I'm not sure that I do it right away, but you will see that in just a second. Then, to add an extra fun touch, I picked out this little butterfly bead that has some metallic details to it that I thought would really pair nice with that kind of metallic green thread that we're using here, and I'm tying it off nice and tight. Then I'm going to give my tassel a haircut like I had mentioned earlier, and all I'm going to do is hot glue it to the underside of the flap of my bag. I probably could have stitched it on, but since it was already giving me a hard time, I really felt like this would have been better with a regular thread if I had it, and I didn't know where mine was, so I just hot glued it on, but you could do this however you wanted. I'm super proud of this piece and how it came out. I think it's absolutely adorable. I don't know why, but as soon as I picked up this a placemat, I just knew that it would make such a great little bag. So here are some close-ups of it, and let me know what you think in the comments down below. I'm so excited to tell you all about today's awesome collab. Myself and 7 other incredible creators are coming together for the Fab Four and Friends Spring DIY collab. You will find the links to all of their videos for this collab in my description box below. I hope you enjoy what they make as well, and thank you all so much for inviting me to be part of this. I'm super excited. Now let's get back to the DIYs. This one was a bit difficult to capture on camera, but it is this cool hanging little glass jar with all these sweet little floral type of details inside. So I'm using this pack of tiny little glass containers that I got from the Dollar Tree that have little tiny cork tops, and all I'm doing is cutting off little fragments of flowers and leaves and shoving them in there, which was actually harder than I expected. I'm using, as you can see, a paintbrush to help me, but some of them really took a lot of work to try and get in there. I tried to have 3 that had flowers in them and 3 that had different types of leaves. Forgive me for the times I'm off camera. I was really trying to shove those little flowers in there. Like I said, it was more difficult than I expected. Here you can see the final lineup of the little bottles with the little floral pieces inside. Like I said, this was kind of difficult to capture on camera as a whole, but here you can see up close how cute all of these really go together. Once I've got those, I took a really long piece of twine, folded it in half, and I mean really long because it's got to be way longer than these because it has to have space in between each one and enough to create knots in between each one as well. So I just created a knot at the top with a loop in it so that it would be able to hang, and then I just tied 2 knots around each one of the little bottles. So I tie one around the bottle of the, the neck of the bottle, and then I just tie a knot over that knot, and I just go down a few inches and tie the next one, and I repeat this process all the way down to the bottom, trying to make sure that they're all spaced evenly. Here's what our lineup is looking so far, all attached together, but then I really wanted some sort of extra special touch. So at the very bottom, I am going to attach a tassel, and I do end up adding somewhat of a tassel at the top later on, but I am just wrapping around a fluffy piece of pale pink yarn. It doesn't really look very pink in here, but it is. It's a real pale pink and some of more of that twine, and repeating the same process I did earlier to make my little tassel. All I do then is just play with it to figure out how I want to attach it to the bottom of my string and where I want that knot to fall, and cut off the edges. Like I mentioned earlier, I felt like to kind of match that bottom tassel, it needed a little bit more. So here's what it looks like beforehand, but then I wrap up a couple extra pieces of twine in a little piece of that yarn again and tie it into a loop knot just like at the top, and I end up gluing it to the original knot, and yeah, that's it. close-ups that will hopefully give you a better idea of what it looks like hanging. I absolutely love this piece. Let me know what you think in the comments below.
Time to check out what today's cocktail is.
I'm not entirely sure what to call this cocktail, but I can tell you it was delicious. And this is also a cocktail that would be great as a mocktail as well. All you need is some ice, vodka or not, Sprite, and some apple raspberry juice. That's it. So I just poured a double shot into my glass. Then I pour about 50% of the glass full with some apple raspberry juice. And then I top it off with some Sprite and a slice of lemon just to give it a little bit of citricness or acidity, whatever you want to call it. And this was seriously delicious. I've had this with or without the alcohol, and it was delicious either way for all of you mocktail lovers out there. I hope you give it a try.
Just wanted to pop in one last time to say if you liked any of these DIYs, my personality, my cocktails, whatever it is, I hope you stay, like, and subscribe. It really helps support my channel to grow, and I'm really excited that I just hit 1,000 subscribers, so I would love your extra support. Let's finish our last DIY.
The last DIY in this Fab 4 and Friends spring collab is this Keep On Growing sign. I started with just some foam board that I had left over. You can get this at the Dollar Tree or at Walmart, and I'm just cutting it to the size I want with my X-Acto knife and a straight edge or a ruler, which I also got at the Dollar Tree. Now comes the fun part. We are going to marble this sign with some shaving cream and paint. You can also do this with food coloring, which comes out really vibrant, but I didn't have any on me. So I am using some acrylic paint as well as a little bit of my unicorn spit gel stain that I am just drizzling onto my shaving cream with a popsicle stick. So what we're gonna do is just add our colors where you want them. I will say I probably should have added more in the beginning, but I was afraid of doing too much. So I do end up going back later and adding more onto my sign. Oh yes, so I am using turquoise, lime green, yellow, and gold paint. And then I'm just gonna take my popsicle stick and kind of swirl it all around and marbleize it. What happens when you do that is when you press your tag board or whatever material you're using right onto that, it's going to pick up what is touching it immediately. So any of those cool swirly designs are what it's going to come out as immediately. So again, it doesn't do the greatest job at first. I also probably should have used like a larger pan instead of a plate because it has those ledges on it, but I just smushed it down to the best of my ability. And then with the rest, I just kind of scooped it on with my popsicle stick and swirled it all on there as best I could. Like I said, I ended up having to do this a couple times, which you'll see in the next couple clips. After I wiped it down real good with some paper towel, I think it turned out pretty dang cool. I like all the different movement and texture that's happening in there. And then I mixed some regular green paint with some somewhat lime green paint and started creating some stems with some leaves on them, just using a round brush. When I've reached the other side of my sign, I'm going in with some lettering. I thought about using my Cricut, but to be honest, I was feeling a bit lazy and thought since I already had paint in front of me, I would do it that way. So I'm using some purple paint that's mixed with a little bit of black, and I'm going to write "Keep on Growing." It is written a little bit similar to the font that Ray Dunn uses, but I've just been really liking these tall, awkward letters lately, and don't worry, I fix those smudges later off camera. My biggest fear was that the word growing was not going to fit, so I write "keep growing first to make sure it all fits together, and then I write on the middle. Because my thought was, if all I can fit is keep growing, that's fine. It'll still look good. So that was my main concern. And for me, I just want people to know who really like when I do this by hand, just know this took me, I believe, like 9 minutes to do all of this, not including touch-ups. So I do take my time with my lettering to make sure it turns out nice. Please enjoy some footage of my cat deciding that he really wanted some camera time while I was writing on in between the words keep and growing. Not only was I able to fit the whole phrase, but there was a little bit of negative space left at the end, so I just ended up extending one of my stems and adding this swirl to act as if it were kind of like a flower, and it mimics somewhat the cursive of the word on. When all of that is painted and dried, because I don't want to smudge anything anywhere, I'm going to take this really thick nautical rope from the Dollar Tree and just hot glue it around my edges. I actually spent a long time figuring out what to do with the edges, and this just felt like it looked best. Then I cut a smaller piece out and used my handy dandy T-square there to find the middle of my frame, and then kind of split it evenly in my head. I didn't mark any of this down, but I am essentially measuring where I should put my rope so that the middle of the hanging piece would be in the middle of the sign, and I'm just hot gluing that down. It didn't really feel secure to me, so I do use a popsicle stick, cut it in half, and then glue that to the back to really secure it, and that's it for this one. I was kind of unsure when I started, but I actually really love how this turned out and the way that it pairs with my other flower little details and decor that I have hanging up next to it. I hope you all enjoyed these DIYs, and don't forget to check out everyone else that'll be linked in my description. Bye!